So several years back, I was sitting with a buddy of mine, and he said his wife was getting sick and actually ended up in the hospital, and she was diagnosed with pneumonia. And they brought her back to the house, and I'm talking about, you know, a young couple. I think at the time she was probably mid-20s. And anyway, they bring her back to their home that they purchased, and all the symptoms and everything else started back up. And this is after, you know, she was in the hospital. I think that they went to her parents' house for a period of time, and everything was fine. And sure enough, she goes back to that house, and she's got all of the same symptoms again. And I don't know if she got pneumonia a second time, but she absolutely got sick. Now, this is in Southwest Florida, and this is way before anybody was really talking about anything pertaining to Chinese drywall, or defective drywall for that matter, because I believe that a lot of this drywall did come from China, but it came from other areas as well that was essentially tainted drywall. Now, Chinese drywall was imported to the United States in 2001 to about 2009 because because of the housing demand at that time. There was just a big shortage of a lot of materials, and one of the main materials that you need to finish a home is sheetrock drywall, and we had a huge shortage in the United States at that time, and specifically in booming areas like South Florida. Now, I know Florida definitely got hit hard with defective drywall, Chinese drywall. Other states that got affected as well, per my research, was Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi, as well as Virginia. And now, as time progressed, you know, as a local real estate broker in the area, we were getting calls from people that, you know, needed to sell their homes, and people were getting sick, and it was really at this point in time when we started to hear it on the news about Chinese drywall. And unfortunately, a lot of these homes we had to sell, but it had to be fully disclosed, and these houses had to be remediated as well before the next people could essentially go and live in these homes that were essentially a health hazard to a lot of people. And now, I've been in hundreds of these homes, and I can tell you, after going through so many of these properties, as well as we've even invested in some of them where we had to do remediation jobs, if you're in these homes for long enough, you could feel it. There's an irritation of your eyes. You can get sore throats. People that I've worked with, even contractors, have gotten nosebleeds. People with asthma, it would trigger their asthma pretty significantly. So all in all, it's just a really bad material to have in a home. And ultimately, that's why my buddy's wife, girlfriend at the time, ultimately got pneumonia. And I'm sure, you know, it was rampant across a lot of other homes and a lot of other households where other people probably had just as severe, if not worse. I'm not sure about anybody actually dying from it, but, you know, I don't know. If you've never been inside of a defective drywall home, Chinese drywall home, most times you could tell you're in one, because as they sat for a while, they actually started to have a sulfur smell. It almost smells like rotten eggs. So if you've never been in a home that has defective drywall, that's one of the main things that you can kind of diagnose, to actually look into it further to find out if a home has defective drywall or not. Now, Chinese drywall can be tested, and one of the main ways to really confirm that you do have defective drywall or Chinese drywall is actually the printing of it. Many boards will have different names, but one of the prominent Chinese drywall manufacturers was a company called Knauf. I think it's K-N-A-U-F, and you'll see it printed on the back of back of the actual sheetrock. So if you get in the attic or whatever the case is, that's a key factor in finding out if your home at the time had defective drywall. And it was estimated that over 100,000 homes were built with Chinese drywall. Now, Chinese drywall didn't just wreak havoc on people, but also it had an effect on the property itself. So you would have corroded piping, HVAC systems would fail. There'd be corrosion all over the coils in the HVAC systems. You'd have appliances that would fail as well. So there was a lot of elements inside the home that would actually fail. And a lot of times, a quick way for us, besides smell, if the homes were built in that time period, we would go in to see if we want to find out quickly if it had defective drywall or not. And one way to find out pretty quickly is the defective drywall would corrode any kind of copper. And in any kind of outlet, you have a ground wire, and a ground wire is made of copper. So if you pull out, just pop off the faceplate and pull out. You don't even need to pull out the outlet, and you can just look at the ground wire. And if it was corroded, usually they would turn black. That would be a key factor of pursuing a further investigation. But a lot of times, if the copper was corroded, most cases it did have defective drywall. But here's where a lot of problems started to happen. Some houses, absolutely, they were 100% built with Chinese drywall or defective drywall, but then others were mixed. They had some drywall that was good and some drywall that was defective drywall, and sometimes it could be a couple of sheets of drywall and you didn't even know, because it was just a handful of sheets were bad and the rest of the house was good. And also there were remodels taking place as well. So you could add a house from the 1990s and did a maybe a heavy remodel and put some walls up or whatever the case is, and in some of these remodels they actually had they actually used defective drywall as well. So it just became a messy situation when people were selling and rebuying these properties. It was really just like a scavenger hunt to figure out if it had any defective drywall, a little bit of defective drywall. So it was just a tough time. And not to mention, when you're selling a piece of real estate, you have to disclose any known defects, and a lot of people didn't know that there was defective drywall. And in other cases, people, that was during the real estate recession, people were losing their homes through, foreclosure or deed in lieu of foreclosure or even short sales. So it was just a tough time. So then when we would sell some of those homes, you had to get a really good inspector, and a lot of these homes that were, that had defective drywall, they had to be remediated, and certain investors would go in, buy these homes, but they would have to buy them at even more of a severe discount, because they would have to, sink a bunch of money into the remediation. And a lot of times, a standard 3-bed, 2-bath house, 1,700 square feet, that could be 30, 40,000 of remediation. And that's not taking into consideration replacing, wiring, any kind of insulation, HVAC systems, appliances. So the cost could get pretty high. And again, back in those times, it was just a mess. But I believe that Southwest Florida, I would say most houses did get remediated. I'm sure there's a handful out there that people are living in that don't know. Maybe they have a little bit of defective drywall. But I started thinking about this the other day because there was talk of, because of the shortage of everything going on with all materials, and I was just really just praying that we wouldn't see something like this happen again, because the Chinese were definitely looking at importing certain building materials, and they already do. But when you have such a demand for certain materials, other countries, they don't care. They don't, they're just trying to provide that product and make a buck. So, I just started thinking about that the other day. That's why I want to put this video out and maybe just educate some people on it. Anyway, I appreciate you guys watching. Make sure that you guys subscribe if you haven't already, because we do talk a lot of real estate, personal finance on this channel. So if you guys want that kind of information, be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification, and I will see you on the next video. Thanks a lot.